On our wedding anniversary, at the family dinner, an uninvited guest stole my seat. It was my wife Xu Meng's guy best friend. I smiled, didn't make a fuss, and moved to the side. But he said to the whole table, "A grown man, this spineless, it's a rare sight." My wife laughed along, saying I had a good temper. Then my father-in-law, the chairman of a publicly listed company, walked over with a wine glass in hand.
He didn't look at me.
He didn't look at my wife. He walked straight up to that man. A glass of red wine poured down over his head.
You're fired.
The man was stunned. "Chairman, I don't even work for your company." My father-in-law let out a cold laugh. "You don't, but tomorrow after I acquire your company, you will." Crimson wine dripped from Zhou Kai's carefully styled hair, slid down his stunned face, and bloomed into a large ugly stain across his expensive white shirt. The entire private dining room went deathly silent. The air was thick with the fruit notes of top-tier Cabernet Sauvignon, but now it was laced with the smell of humiliation and disgrace. All the relatives at the table who had been watching me with contemptuous entertainment-seeking eyes just moments before now wore expressions of curiosity, fear, and even barely concealed glee. Their gazes darted between me, my father-in-law Xu Zhengsheng, and the disheveled Zhou Kai, like an audience watching a drama reach its climactic peak. I sat on the small stool in the corner, originally reserved for a child, but at this moment it had become the best seat in the house for the entire show. I watched everything calmly, my heart utterly still. 3 years of marriage had been like a long, slow undercover operation. I had used the identity of an ordinary employee, a carefully woven facade of mediocrity, to test how much of Xu Meng's love for me was real gold, and how much was just gold-plated brass. Today was the deadline, and Zhou Kai was nothing more than the touchstone used to test its quality. "Chairman."
What?
"What do you mean by this?" Zhou Kai finally snapped out of his shock. He wiped the wine from his face, his voice trembling with anger and confusion. He didn't dare lash out at Xu Zhengxiang, so he turned his fury on me instead. He pointed at my nose, his face twisted in a snarl. "Shenzhou, is this your doing? You, a freeloader, getting your father-in-law to fight your battles?
Do you have no shame?"
Before I could speak, Xu Meng's shrill voice cut through the brief silence. She didn't rush toward me, nor did she go to comfort the humiliated Zhou Kai. Instead, she frantically grabbed Xu Zhengxiang's arm, her voice thick with tears and urgent accusation. "Dad, what are you doing? Zhou Kai is my friend. You humiliate him in front of everyone like this. You're making Shenzhou lose so much face." The curve of my lips froze completely at those words. Making Shenzhou lose face.
How absurd.
In her eyes, having my seat stolen in public, being called spineless to my face. None of that counted as losing face. But my father-in-law, the chairman, standing up for me, his son-in-law, that somehow made me lose face. In her logic, I didn't deserve that level of protection at all. My existence was supposed to be docile, humble, and unremarkable accessory in her glamorous life, there only to highlight her generosity. Xu Zhengxiang looked at his daughter with deep disappointment, his voice cold as ice. When he was humiliated and had his seat stolen in front of everyone, where were you, his wife? Xu Meng was struck speechless. Her face flushed red, then paled. She opened her mouth, but not a single word came out.
"Yes. Where was she?"
She was sitting right next to Zhou Kai, watching him mock me with contempt, calling me spineless. Not only did she not defend me, she laughed along and said I had a good temper. That smile was like the dullest knife, slicing through the last shred of warmth in my heart, inch by inch. Unable to argue, Xu Meng's shame turned to rage, and she hurled all her resentment at me. She glared at me, her eyes filled with venom.
It's all your fault?
Shenzhou,
All of this is your fault.
You just had to endure it. If you'd shown even an ounce of backbone, would things have spiraled like this? Now look, Dad offended my best friend because of you. Are you happy now? I looked at her face, twisted with anger, a face that had once made my heart flutter, and all I felt was a frozen wasteland of silence inside. This 3-year marriage test had, at this moment, reached its final, clearest verdict. I had lost.
lost completely.
I stood up and straightened my cheap but clean shirt. For the first time, I didn't offer her a gentle smile. I didn't even look at her again. My gaze passed over her and landed on my father-in-law, Xu Zhengxiang. My voice was as calm as if I were discussing the weather. Dad, let's go home. This meal can't be finished. With that, I walked forward, stepping past the frozen Xu Meng, and headed for the door of the private room without looking back. For the first time in 3 years, I didn't consider her feelings. For the first time, I didn't wait for her. For the first time, I left her behind, alone. Xu Meng stood there, stunned, as if she couldn't believe that Shen Zhou, the man who had always obeyed her every whim, who had always been at her beck and call, would treat her with such cold indifference. Shen Zhou, stop right there. Her shrill scream came from behind me. I didn't stop. Xu Zhengxiang looked at his disappointing daughter, let out a cold snort of disgust, and turned to follow my steps. The private room was left with a table full of relatives wearing expressions of shock, Zhou Kai drenched in wine like a stray dog, and my former wife Xu Meng, looking as though the entire world had abandoned her. Back at the Xu family villa, my father-in-law Xu Zhengxiang and I sat in the study, neither of us speaking. He brewed tea himself, high-grade Da Hong Pao. The fragrant steam curled upward, dispelling some of the murky atmosphere from the restaurant. After a long moment, he sighed and broke the silence. Xiao Zhou, these 3 years.
You've been wronged.
His voice carried exhaustion and apology. I knew all along that Xu Meng was spoiled by me and her mother, full of princess syndrome, but I never imagined she'd be this clueless, this heartless. I shook my head, the warmth of the teacup seeping through my fingertips.
Dad, it's not your fault.
It was my choice. I looked up, meeting his searching gaze, and decided to stop hiding the truth. Actually, this marriage, from the very beginning, was a test. Xu Zhengxiang's hand, holding the teacup, paused almost imperceptibly. Shock flickered across his eyes, but just as quickly, it settled into something like understanding. He was, after all, a titan who had weathered decades of storms in the business world. He had seen every kind of person, endured every kind of ordeal. Perhaps he had long since sensed that I was no ordinary man. He simply chose to respect my decision, never calling it out loud.
I understand.
He gave a slow, weighty nod, then reached out and firmly clapped my shoulder. Whatever you decide, your father stands behind you. That single word, father, melted the last sliver of coldness lodged in my chest, replacing it with a faint, unexpected warmth. These past 3 years, Xu Meng had given me nothing but endless disappointment and slow, grinding exhaustion. But Xu Zhengxiang had given me something else entirely, the trust and support of a father. Then, without warning, the study door slammed open with a thunderous crash. Xu Meng stormed in, her high heels striking the hardwood floor in sharp, aggressive bursts. Her makeup was ruined, her eyes rimmed red from crying, but what dominated her face right now was not sorrow. It was the hot, bristling fury of someone who had been defied. Her gaze locked onto me like an arrow loosed from a bow.
Shen Zhou.
What the hell is your problem?
You left me alone in that restaurant, made me a laughingstock in front of everyone. You've gotten bold now, haven't you?
I watched her calmly, the way one watches a stranger throwing an unreasonable tantrum.
I made you a laughingstock.
Xu Meng, did the alcohol wash away your memory? I was the one whose seat was taken. I was the one publicly humiliated and treated like a pushover. She seemed caught off guard by my rebuttal, blinking for a moment before rallying with even more self-righteous indignation.
So what?
Zhou Kai is my friend.
He was just joking around with you, what's the big deal?
You are a grown man and you can't even take a little joke.
My father already stepped in. All you have to do is soften up, go apologize to Zhou Kai, and this whole thing blows over.
Why do you have to make everything so awkward and leave everyone with no way out?
Apologize? I laughed a bitter, incredulous laugh. I genuinely laughed at the sheer absurdity of her logic. A man humiliates my dignity and tramples my pride in front of every relative I have, and my own wife expects me to go apologize to him.
Because Hez her friend. How ridiculous.
How pathetic.
This was the woman I had loved and spoiled for 3 years. A refined, beautiful, utterly heartless narcissist. Slowly, I pulled open the desk drawer and took out a document that had been printed months ago, lying there quietly all that time waiting. I placed it on the table in front of her and slid it across.
Xu Meng.
Let's get a divorce. My voice wasn't loud, but it detonated in the silent study like a thunderclap. The fury on Xu Meng's face froze mid-expression, as if someone had hit pause. She stared in disbelief at the papers on the table, then snapped her head up to look at me, her eyes wide as saucers.
What did you say?
Divorce?
Shen Zhou, have you lost your mind? Over something this trivial today? You want to divorce me?
Trivial.
I repeated the word, bitterness flooding my mouth.
In your eyes, my dignity being trampled is just a trivial little thing?
I rose to my feet, looking down at her, and spoke each word slowly with absolute clarity. No, it's not because of today. It's from the moment you watched him humiliate me, and instead of defending me, you smiled along and said I had a good temper. That's when we were already over. My words struck like an ice-cold awl, piercing through her final layer of pretense. The anger and disbelief on her face began to crack, revealing the panic and fear beneath.
No, that's not.
I'm sorry, isn't that enough?
Her tone softened, her voice trembling with the threat of tears, as she reached out to grab the hem of my shirt. I just didn't want the scene to get ugly, okay?
We're all friends here?
Shenzhou, stop this. Put that away. What if someone sees it? Even as she spoke, she reached for the divorce agreement, trying to tear it up. I stepped back, easily evading her hand. Her fingers sliced through empty air, clutching at nothing but despair. I looked at her coldly, at this woman who, even at this very moment, was still worried about what others might see. She had never cared about our relationship, never cared about how I felt. The only thing she ever cared about was her own face. The agreement is in duplicate. Tearing it up won't help.
I've already signed.
Once you sign, we go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow.
The house, the car, they're all yours.
I'll leave with nothing. Every word I spoke landed on her like a sledgehammer against her chest. She was completely stunned, collapsing onto the floor in a daze, muttering to herself. Why? How did this happen? Wasn't it just a small thing? I watched her sit there, hollow and broken, and felt not a shred of pity. 3 years was enough time to see a person clearly. My patience had run dry. This play was finally coming to its end. The next morning, the entire financial circle of Bincheng was rocked by a single headline. The Xu Group announces a hostile takeover bid for Qihang Technology. The news hit like a deep-sea bomb, sending towering waves crashing through previously placid waters. The Xu Group was the commercial flagship of Bincheng, and Chairman Xu Zhengxiang was famous for his cautious, steady hand. Qihang Technology, meanwhile, was the company Zhou Kai had poured his heart and soul into for years, the source of his pride. It had carved out a modest reputation among mid-sized tech firms, but standing before a leviathan like the Xu Group, it was nothing more than a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The moment news of the hostile takeover broke, Qihang's stock price plummeted. Within half an hour of market open, it hit the daily limit down. Calls from banks demanding repayment, emails from partners terminating contracts, furious tirades from investors, all of it avalanched down at once, burying Zhou Kai and his pathetic pride in a single crushing sweep. My phone at the same time was bombarded with calls and messages from Xu Meng. First, she was hysterical, demanding to know if I had told my father to do this. After I confirmed it, she switched to tearful pleading. Shenzhou, baby, I'm begging you, tell your father to stop, please.
Qihang is his whole life's work.
You can't destroy him like this.
For my sake, for the sake of everything we've been through, please, just let him off this once. I listened on the other end of the line as she rambled and pleaded, and I felt nothing but a deep, cutting irony.
My sake?
Everything we've been through?
I asked her coldly, when he pointed his finger at my face and humiliated me. Why didn't you tell him to shut up for my sake? The line went dead silent.
I didn't give her a chance to speak again.
I hung up, then dragged her number into my blacklist.
WeChat, text messages, every possible way to reach me. I blocked them all.
The world fell quiet in an instant.
And Zhou Kai, cornered with nowhere left to run, turned into a rabid dog, thrashing in his death throes. He couldn't reach Xu Zhengxiang, couldn't find me either, so he could only use Xu Meng as a messenger, passing along his threats and curses again and again. After countless desperate calls to Xu Meng went unanswered, he started digging into me. He mobilized every connection and resource he had, trying to unearth some dirt on me to use as leverage in negotiations. But the results of his investigation left him deeply disappointed and only reinforced his convictions. Me, Shenzhou, I owned a single small investment consulting firm with a registered capital of 1 million yuan, called Yuanhang Capital. The company's cash flow was mediocre, the office was rented in a remote startup park, and the staff counting me totaled 3 people. Every piece of information pointed to one conclusion: I was nothing but a kept man, a complete waste of space who only got to throw his weight around because of his father-in-law. This discovery sparked a vicious idea in the cornered Zhou Kai. Since he couldn't topple Xu Zhengxiang, head strike at my weakest link. Through some shady back-channel sources, he found out that my little broke company had recently taken a heavy position in a stock called Blue Ocean Intelligence. A crazy plan took shape in his mind. He would team up with market-hot money to short this stock. He would blow up my pathetic little fortune, leave me with nothing, bankrupt and liquidated. He wanted Xu Meng, Xu Zhengxing, and everyone else to see that Shenzhou, without the Xu family, was just a pile of mud that couldn't be smeared on a wall. He excitedly shared his plan with Xu Meng, his tone dripping with the thrill of revenge.
Meng, just wait and watch the show.
That useless husband of yours is a total idiot.
Watch me destroy him.
Once has bankrupt and crawling back to beg you, well, see how arrogant he can be. On the other end of the phone, Xu Meng was silent, Through some technical means, I could see her chat logs with Zhou Kai. Her resolve was wavering violently. On one hand, she was afraid it'd actually go bankrupt. That would make her 3 years of marrying down a complete joke. On the other hand, she secretly looked forward to seeing me taught a harsh lesson. She wanted to watch me get knocked back to reality, stripped of all the halo that came from her father, and then come crawling back to her, pathetic and humbled, begging her to make Zhou Kai stop. At that point, she could reclaim the dominant position in this relationship, deciding my fate from the lofty perch of a savior. The ugliness of human nature laid itself bare in that moment. Soon, negative news about Blue Ocean Intelligence began flooding every stock forum and financial social media platform. Huge bombshell. Blue Ocean Intelligence's core technology exposed as fake founder fled overnight. Insider leak. Blue Ocean Intelligence's capital chain has snapped bankruptcy announcement coming next week. Stay away from Blue Ocean. Stay away from value destruction. The short seller's rally call has sounded. Article after article, full of confident accusations, paired with some vague so-called evidence, quickly whipped up massive panic in the market. Monday's open. Blue Ocean Intelligence hit the limit down price. No surprise. A mountain of sell orders slammed onto the limit down board like a fortress, unmoving. My life savings, in everyone's eyes, were hanging by a thread. Blue Ocean Intelligence hit limit down for 3 straight days. The market was filled with wailing, countless retail investors cutting their losses and fleeing. And the mastermind, Zhou Kai, was smug, even popping champagne at his private club to celebrate. He could already picture me losing everything, kneeling before him, wagging my tail like a dog. He posted photos of the celebration party on his moments, captioned, "Some people are born garbage." Xu Meng liked that post. She finally couldn't resist sending me a text message since I'd blocked her on WeChat. Her tone carried a barely concealed sense of superiority and charity.
Shen Zhou, come back now and beg me.
Come apologize to Zhou Kai, and I'll have him back off. It's not too late. Stop toughing it out. I know how much you have and it won't hold. I looked at that message and smiled. Even my father-in-law, Xu Zhengxiang, called. His voice carried genuine concern. Xiao Zhou, I heard about the situation.
Need any help?
It's not that I don't trust you, but the capital market is deep water.
Don't let your small savings get burned in a moment of impulse.
Just say the word, and my company can step in anytime. I could hear the sincerity in his words. In this whole storm, he was the only one who genuinely cared about me. I smiled into the phone, my tone light.
Dad, don't worry.
It's just a rabid dog trying to bite.
I can handle it.
The real show is just beginning. After hanging up, I looked at the computer screen at that bright green candlestick, and there was no panic in my eyes, only amusement. Zhou Kai thought he'd found my weak spot, but he didn't realize he'd just slammed headfirst into my reverse scale. He thought he was shorting my entire fortune, but he didn't know that Yuanhang Capital was nothing more than my pocket money wallet.
And Blue Ocean Intelligence?
That was the tech giant I'd personally nurtured, the one about to reshape the world's landscape. On the 4th day, Zhou Kai maxed out his leverage, pouring every last cent he'd scraped together through various channels into his short position. He wanted to win it all in one stroke today. He'd nail me to the pillar of bankruptcy once and for all. At 2:30 p.m., 30 minutes before market close, the entire market was convinced that Blue Ocean Intelligence would hit its 4th limit down today. Zhou Kai had already had his assistant book the venue for tonight's victory dinner. Right then, I gave the order to the trader in front of me.
Start.
One command. A flood of buy orders, astronomical in scale, surged into the Blue Ocean Intelligence order book like a sudden torrent of beasts. 1 billion,
5 billion.
10 billion. The sell wall that loomed over the limit down price, looking as unbreakable as a mountain of steel, was devoured in an instant by the surging tide of capital, like paper crumbling before a storm. On the screen, the stock price began to defy the laws of physics itself, launching upward from the -10% mark like a rocket tearing free of gravity. A perfectly straight line, nearly perpendicular to the time axis, appeared on every trader's monitor. 8%, 5%, 0%, +3%, +7%. 10 minutes? Just 10 minutes. The stock had been dragged from limit down all the way to limit up, from net 10% to +10%. A 20% intraday swing history was being written in the A-share market in real time. A wall of buy orders slammed down on the limit up price, immovable no matter how many sell orders crashed against it. The entire market went insane. Every single short seller was wiped out in that moment. The leveraged hot money, the retail traders who had piled in betting against the stock, all of them lost everything in the span of 10 short minutes. And Zhou Kai, who had piled on the maximum leverage, didn't just lose his position, he blew straight through it. Not only was every cent of his principal gone, but he now owed his broker a sum so astronomically large that he couldn't pay it back in a dozen lifetimes. I could picture him staring at his screen right now, his face the color of ash, utterly hollowed out. The financial media world exploded. Every journalist, every analyst, every market influencer was frantically trying to uncover the identity of this mysterious force that had descended like divine cavalry to defend the stock. What consortium possessed such terrifying resources and nerve? That evening, a bombshell announcement was broadcast to the world through China's most authoritative financial media outlet. Global top-tier private equity firm Shenzhou Capital announces a strategic investment of 30 billion yuan in Blue Ocean Intelligence and will assist the company in its global industrial expansion. Beneath the announcement was a profile of Shenzhou Capital, a firm founded overseas operating in the shadows. Yet over the past decade, it had stirred up countless storms across global capital markets with its razor-sharp, ruthless investment style. Its assets under management had long since surpassed the trillion yuan mark. And at the very end of the news piece, a revelation that made everyone's eyes nearly pop out of their sockets. According to sources close to the matter, the founder and sole ultimate controller of Shenzhou Capital is none other than Shenzhou. The article was accompanied by a photo of me speaking at a closed-door summit on Wall Street 3 years ago. In the photo, I was wearing a bespoke suit, standing under the spotlight, my gaze sharp, my presence commanding, a world apart from the useless image ID cultivated over the past 3 years. The cheap t-shirts, the gold-rimmed glasses, the harmless, mild-mannered facade. The entire internet went into meltdown.
That kept husband of the Xu family, the one everyone thought was a freeloader, was actually the legendary, never seen in public trillion yuan private equity titan.
That Yuanhong Capital, with its paltry 1 million yuan registered capital, was just his spare change wallet for grocery shopping. The entire upper crust of Bincheng was rocked to its core. The cards were on the table. No more pretending. I, Shenzhou, am filthy rich. Xu Meng saw the news while getting a spa treatment at a high-end beauty salon. It was one of her close friends who sent the link to their group chat.
Meng, quick, look.
Your husband is on the front page. Is this for real? Oh my god.
Shenzhou of Shenzhou Capital?
The same Shenzhou we know.
Holy crap!
A trillion yuan big shot.
Meng, you married a god?
The group chat exploded instantly, flooded with shock, envy, and disbelief. Xu Meng tapped the link. When she saw that familiar face connected to that unfamiliar name, founder of Shenzhou Capital, her mind went completely blank. She held her phone, her hands trembling uncontrollably, zooming in on the photo again and again, rereading every word of the article to make sure she wasn't dreaming. The family she had always prided herself on, her father's listed company with its 10 billion market cap. In the face of Shenzhou Capital's trillion yuan asset scale, it was nothing more than a speck of dust. The marrying down she had always believed in, turns out she had been reaching for the heavens and somehow caught a god. The mediocrity she had always looked down on, turns out it was a dragon standing on a cloud, looking down at an ant with nothing but tolerance and amusement. She thought back to the past 3 years, scene by scene. She remembered me showing up at her friends' gatherings in a $30 t-shirt, driving that 100,000 yuan domestic beater. She remembered the time she mocked me in front of everyone for having no ambition, saying a man shouldn't be so content with the status quo. She remembered how, whenever she threw tantrums and flew into rages, I would always smile gently, soothe her, accommodate her.
She thought that was weakness.
That I had no spine.
Now she finally understood.
That wasn't weakness at all.
That was a dragon soaring 10,000 meters in the air, casting a silent, emotionless gaze down at a chattering ant on the ground. Her pride, her sense of superiority,
Her pitiful, pathetic vanity.
all of it shattered into dust in that single moment. Regret and fear flooded over her like icy seawater, drowning her in an instant. She finally understood what she had lost. What she had pushed away with her own hands was a true dynasty, one she could never reach again in this lifetime, or the next or the one after that. She called me frantically, only to hear, "The number you have dialed is powered off." She sent me WeChat messages, only to see a red exclamation mark. She switched to text messages, sending voice note after voice note, her voice shifting from initial shock, to pleading, to full-blown collapse. "Honey, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Shenzhou, please just call me back, okay?
I'm begging you?
It was all Zhou Kai's fault.
He forced me.
None of this is my fault.
Honey,
I didn't reply to a single one.
She ran out of the beauty salon, not even bothering to change, still in her bathrobe. she drove straight to the address of my little startup company. She was going to find me. She was going to get on her knees and beg. She was going to fix everything. But when she arrived at that remote business park, all she found was an empty office. On the glass door of the office was a printed relocation notice.
Yuanhang Capital has fulfilled its historical mission.
Effective immediately, all operations have been merged into Shenzhou Capital. New address, top floor, Bincheng International Financial Center. Bincheng International Financial Center. The most expensive, most iconic office building in the city. A place only truly elite companies could call home. She drove there like a madwoman, only to be stopped at the entrance of the opulent lobby by the front desk and two towering, stern-faced security guards. "Miss, do you have an appointment?" The receptionist's smile was polished, professional, and utterly distant. "I'm here for Shenzhou. I'm his wife," Xu Meng screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. "I'm sorry, but without an appointment, you cannot see Mr. Shen."
Then tell him to come down.
"Tell him Xu Meng is here?"
Hell see me.
A security guard stepped forward, planting himself directly in her path, and made a sweeping "please leave" gesture. His tone was courteous, but the warning in his eyes was unmistakable. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to keep your voice down."
You're disrupting company operations.
Xu Meng stood frozen in the lobby, watching the sharp-suited elites stride past, their gazes flicking toward her with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. For the first time, she tasted what it felt like to be ignored, to be rejected, to be treated as nothing more than a nuisance.
That taste, it was exactly what I had swallowed every single day for the past 3 years, from her and from every one of her so-called friends.
Just as she stood there, helpless and hollow, her phone buzzed. It was her father.
Xu Zhangxing.
She grabbed at the call like a drowning woman clutching a lifeline, sobbing before she even said hello.
Dad!
"Dad, please help me.
Shenzhou doesn't want me anymore.
Hess divorcing me." On the other end of the line came a voice she had never heard before, cold, sharp, and utterly devoid of warmth. "You realize you were wrong now? Too late. The Xu family's dignity, you flushed it all down the drain, you fool." The line went dead. Xu Meng's world collapsed in silence. Zhou Kai's downfall was even more brutal than Xu Meng's. He hadn't just lost his fortune, he was drowning in billions of dollars in debt. His properties, his luxury cars, every asset he owned had been seized by the courts and auctioned off to cover his losses. Overnight, he went from a celebrated tech prodigy, riding high on ambition and hype, to a hunted rat, scorned by everyone who once cheered his name. The creditors' head dragged down with him, the ones who'd been margin called into ruin, circled like sharks drawn to blood, hunting him relentlessly. He fled from one hiding spot to the next, a stray dog with nowhere to call home. The sheer vertigo of his fall drove him to the edge of madness. And in that madness, he found a single target for all his rage, me. He couldn't accept it. Couldn't accept that the man he'd always dismissed as a nobody, a pushover, was actually the mastermind behind trillions in capital. His mind twisted into paranoia. I must have cheated.
Insider trading.
Market manipulation.
That was the only way I could have beaten him.
Yes, that's it.
He broke the law.
Driven by that delusion, he launched his final revenge.
He would report me. He would drag me down with him, even if it meant burning himself to ashes. He dug up a few financial journalists head greased in the past, spent the last of his cash buying them off, and set them loose to fabricate so-called dirt on me online. One after another, increasingly sensational articles began to spread across the internet. Shock. Shenzhou of Shenzhou Capital implicated in massive insider trading, regulators launch investigation. Exposed. The billionaires' rise to power, built on filthy backroom deals. Shorting with impunity? The explosive surge in Blue Ocean Intelligence's stock is naked market manipulation. These pieces, paired with the evidence Zhou Kai provided, carefully edited, cleverly forged, looked convincing enough to ignite a firestorm. Public opinion began to shift. Legions of netizens and retail investors who didn't know the full story started questioning me, even hurling abuse. My business empire seemed to be teetering on the edge of its gravest credibility crisis yet. And when Xu Meng saw those headlines, buried in her endless despair, a twisted spark of hope flickered to life. A ridiculous thought took root in her mind. If Shenzhou fell, if he was no longer that untouchable trillion-dollar titan, if he lost everything, even ended up behind bars, then wouldn't he need her again?
Need the Xu family's help?
Maybe then, they could go back to the way things were. The idea coiled around her brain like poison ivy, tightening with every passing hour. She actually reached out to Zhou Kai, who was still on the run. She transferred him money, her last private savings.
She told him, make it bigger.
The the better. As long as you can bring him down, he'll pay you whatever you want. She didn't know. Every call she made to Joe Kai, every message she sent, it all flowed through the surveillance systems it quietly put in place, appearing in crystal clarity on my computer screen. I stared at her words, make it bigger, and felt the last shred of old schoolmate loyalty ID held for her crumble into dust. Grief beyond grief is silence. And now my heart had gone quiet forever. Soon, under mounting public pressure, the regulatory authorities issued an official announcement. They were launching a formal investigation into me and Shenzhou Capital for suspected market manipulation. The moment the news broke, the internet exploded. My empire, it seemed, was caught in the eye of a hurricane. My father-in-law, Xu Zhengsheng, called again. This time, his voice carried an anxiety he couldn't hide.
Xiao Zhou.
This time, did you really overplay your hand? I leaned back in my comfortable office chair, gazing out at the dazzling nightscape of Binching through the floor-to-ceiling windows. My voice remained calm. Dad, don't worry.
The fish have already swum into the net on their own.
It's time to close it. 3 days later, I called a press conference.
Live Global Broadcast.
The venue, the top floor of Shenzhou Capital's headquarters in the International Finance Center. The room was packed wall to wall. Cameras, microphones, and reporters from hundreds of outlets around the world, crammed into every inch of space. Their faces glowed with excitement and anticipation, ready to witness either the collapse of a business empire or a thunderous counterstrike. I walked up to the podium alone, dressed in a deep navy suit.
No lawyers.
No PR team. Just me. I sat down calmly, facing the blinding flashes and the piercing stares of the crowd below. I know what you all want to ask.
No rush, one at a time.
A foreign reporter known for his sharp questioning grabbed the first opportunity.
Mr.
Shen, there are allegations that you used your massive capital advantage to deliberately manipulate the stock price of Blue Ocean Intelligence, causing countless investors to lose everything.
How do you respond?
I smiled at him.
Instead of answering directly, I pressed the remote in my hand. The massive LED screen behind me flickered to life, displaying a video. In it, a white-haired scientist stood in a laboratory, presenting a revolutionary new technology to the camera, a graphene-based battery with an energy density more than 10 times that of existing lithium-ion batteries. This technology will completely reshape the global energy landscape. The scientist on the screen spoke with barely contained excitement. The video ended.
The entire room erupted into murmurs.
Everyone understood the seismic implications of what they had just witnessed. I opened my mouth, unhurried, my voice carrying through the microphone to every corner of the hall. This is Professor Alvin, Nobel laureate in physics. He is also the chief scientist at Blue Horizon Intelligence. Our original plan was to announce this technology to the world in 1 month's time, once all patent procedures were fully completed. But as things stand now, we have no choice but to move up the timeline. Let me ask you all a question. If a company possesses technology this disruptive, shouldn't its true value be reflected in the market? Is a surge in its stock price market manipulation, or is it value discovery? My words landed like hammer blows. The journalists below exchanged uneasy glances. The aggressive, confrontational energy they had walked in with just moments ago evaporated into thin air. I gave them no time to regroup. I shifted gears, my gaze turning razor sharp. Now that I've explained my actions, let's talk about the person who filed the complaint against me. I pressed the remote again. The screen switched to a crisp, meticulously constructed evidence chain. At the very top, a photograph of Zhou Kai. Beneath it, dozens of threads of evidence, each pointing in a different direction. Zhou Kai, former founder of Pioneer Technology, has over the past 5 years repeatedly used illegal means to steal trade secrets from no fewer than 7 competitors. He has also bribed relevant personnel to engage in insider trading, netting illegal profits, exceeding 300 million. These are the recorded phone calls between him and his accomplices, along with the corresponding bank transfer records. Crystal clear audio clips and transfer screenshots appeared on the massive display. The room fell into absolute silence. The only sound was the frantic clicking of camera shutters. This was no longer a business dispute. This was naked, unambiguous commercial crime. My voice rang out like a judge delivering a verdict, cold, merciless, final. And this time, in order to short Blue Horizon Intelligence, he not only spread rumors but also bought off media outlets, attempting to use public opinion to hijack regulators and manipulate the market. And when he found himself cornered, there were still people behind the scenes funneling him money, egging him on to blow the whole thing up. I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the room before settling on one of the live broadcast cameras. I knew Xu Meng was watching.
Let's listen to a very interesting recording.
I pressed play. Xu Meng's voice familiar, shrill, unmistakable, cut through the global livestream and reached every corner of the world.
Make it bigger.
The bigger, the better. As long as you can drag him down, I'll pay whatever it takes. The recording finished. I looked straight into the camera and said, calmly, the person who reported me is himself the criminal, and my ex-wife is the criminal's accomplice. Back at home, watching the live stream, Xu Meng heard her own voice blast through the speakers. Her vision went black. She collapsed straight to the floor, body limp. At the press conference, police officers who had been pre-deployed among the crowd moved in the instant the recording ended. They moved with precision, converging on several individuals scattered among the journalists, Zhou Kai's accomplices and the reporters he had bought off. Cold steel handcuffs clicked shut around their trembling wrists, gleaming under the barrage of camera flashes. That same afternoon, news broke. Zhou Kai, who had been on the run for days, had been apprehended by police outside his mistress's apartment building. I had not only cleared my name of every suspicion, I had single-handedly dismantled a criminal syndicate that had been entrenched in Bincheng's business world for years. My reputation in that moment reached its zenith. Shenzhou Capital became legendary overnight.
Xu Meng's downfall came faster than even I had anticipated.
The very next day, Xu Zhengxiang published a statement on the front pages of every major newspaper in Bincheng. From this day forward, Mr. Xu Zhengxiang hereby severs all father-daughter relations with Xu Meng. All words and actions of Miss Xu Meng henceforth bear no connection whatsoever to the Xu family. A few short lines, yet they read like the harshest verdict imaginable, carving Xu Meng out of the Xu family, out of Bincheng's high society, completely and permanently. Her luxury mansion, her sports cars, her bank cards, her designer goods, everything she owned was confiscated by the people Xu Zhenxiang sent.
She was cast out with nothing.
From the clouds, in a single night, she plummeted into the filthiest gutter. The friends she once had now avoided her like the plague, blocking her on every platform. The relatives she had once fawned over now scattered at the mere sight of her, as if she carried a contagion, not forgetting to toss a few cutting remarks her way. She finally understood. Everything she had ever possessed had come from her identity as the miss of the Xu family, and the moment that identity was stripped away, she was worth nothing. After enduring the despair of being evicted from her apartment, penniless and wandering the streets, she finally remembered the one person she could still turn to, the one person she had broken beyond repair. Me. Day after day, she waited outside my company building. It started with dignified waiting. Then came desperate clinging, and finally pitiful begging. She wanted to see me. Every single time, the security guards turned her away. A week later, a torrential rainstorm hit Bincheng. Raindrops the size of beans slammed against the glass curtain wall of the International Finance Center, drumming a dull, relentless rhythm. I finished reviewing the last document and prepared to head home. My assistant held an umbrella, walking me to the parking lot at the building's entrance. Just as my Rolls-Royce slowly emerged from the underground garage, a figure burst out of the rain like a madwoman, throwing herself directly into the path of my car. Xu Meng! She was drenched to the bone, her expensive dress plastered to her skin, her hair stuck to her face in tangled strands.
She looked utterly wrecked.
Security guards rushed over immediately, trying to pull her away. But she dropped to her knees with a heavy thud, right in front of my car, for everyone to see. The cold rain mixed with the tears streaming down her face, pooling in a small puddle beneath her. She lifted her head, staring at the pitch-black windows of the car, and screamed my name with every ounce of strength she had left.
Shenzhou, come out and see me.
I was wrong.
I was so wrong.
Please, just forgive me this once.
I'm begging you.
Her cries were shrill, desperate, utterly broken. Up in the building, quite a few employees who hadn't left yet gathered at the floor-to-ceiling windows, pointing and whispering among themselves. My driver turned to look at me, seeking instructions.
Mr.
Shen, I stared expressionlessly at the woman kneeling in the rain before my car, her forehead pounding against the wet ground again and again. The face that had once haunted my every waking thought now only filled me with a sense of strangeness and disgust. The car window rolled down, just a crack. She saw the window move and thought I had softened. Her cries grew louder, more desperate, and a flicker of hope reignited in her eyes. I looked at her and let a few ice-cold words fall from my lips. Call the police. Tell them someone is causing a disturbance at the company entrance, disrupting normal operations. With that, I rolled the window back up, sealing out the sight of her face suddenly drained of all color, collapsing into utter despair. The driver hesitated for a moment, but he still dialed the emergency number without delay. The car pulled forward again, slowly gliding past her where she knelt on the wet ground, merging into the rain-soaked stream of traffic. In the rearview mirror, Her figure grew smaller and smaller until it became nothing more than a blurry black dot. The day the divorce cooling off period ended, the weather was beautiful. We met at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. It was the closest we had been to each other since that press conference. She looked haggard, gaunt beyond recognition, sunken eyes, swollen and red, stripped of every trace of her former radiance. She wore a faded, washed-out old coat and stood there awkwardly, like a child who had done something wrong, waiting for judgment. When she saw me step out of the car, she hurried over, making one last desperate attempt.
Shenzhou.
Her voice was hoarse and dry. Can we not do this? Give me one more chance, please.
I swear I'll be a good wife from now on.
I'll listen to everything you say.
I didn't acknowledge her pleading. I just looked at her calmly. Let's go inside. Once the paperwork is done, I have a meeting. My coldness made her body tremble. The last light in her eyes went out completely. The process was quick and smooth. When we each walked out holding our red divorce certificates, she called out to me again.
Shenzhou.
I stopped but didn't turn around.
I just want to ask you one last question.
Her voice shook. Did you ever love me?
I paused for a moment.
Then from my briefcase, I pulled out a document and turned to hand it to her. She looked at it, confused.
What is this?
Read it yourself.
Her hands trembling, she took the document. The title at the top was a few stark bold characters. Equity Gift Agreement. She read on, taking in the contents. Party a donor. Shenzhou Party B recipient. Xu Meng agreement content. Party A voluntarily agrees to gift 5% of the equity he holds in Shenzhou Capital to Party B, free of charge, on the 3rd anniversary of their marriage, as a wedding anniversary gift. The signing date on the agreement was 1 week before that family dinner. And at the end of the agreement was an asset valuation report issued by a globally top-tier accounting firm. The valuation of Shenzhou Capital listed in that report was an astronomical number that made her dizzy, and the value represented by that 5% equity was enough to buy 10 of her father's Xu Group. Xu Meng's breath stopped. She stared at the document, wide-eyed, as if looking at a monster from another world. I pointed at the staggering valuation figure on the paper, my voice soft, yet cutting like the sharpest blade, slicing into her heart, one stroke at a time. This was the 3rd anniversary gift I prepared for you. I planned to give it to you at the end of the dinner that night, in front of everyone as a surprise. Then I was going to tell you everything about me, and with our family begin a new, honest, beautiful life. I even thought about putting part of Shenzhou Capital under your management, making you a woman who truly stood at the top of the world. I looked at her bloodless face, a mocking smile curling at the corner of my mouth.
But you didn't pass the test?
With your actions, you proved to me again and again that you didn't deserve it. With that, I took the document back from her stiff, frozen hands, right in front of her. Then, under her gaze, I tore that priceless agreement into pieces, shred by shred. The paper scraps fell from my fingertips like snowflakes, scattering into the trash can by her feet. Xu Meng watched those fragments fall, as if watching her own shattered life. A strangled, inhuman shriek tore from her throat. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed completely, crumpling to the ground. I took my divorce certificate, turned and got into the car. This time, I never looked back. A few days after the divorce, Xu Zhengsheng asked to meet me. The place was the same old tea house he always frequented. In just half a month, he seemed to have aged 10 years, far more white hair at his temples now. He didn't call me Xiaozhou anymore. Silently, he poured me a cup of tea. Shenzhou, he finally spoke, his voice heavy with exhaustion.
I'm sorry.
It's my failure in raising her.
I raised such a
worthless child.
She put you through so much.
With that, he took out a black bank card from his coat and slid it across the table toward me. There's some money in here.
Not much.
Consider it. Compensation from me, on behalf of that wretched girl. I pushed the card back.
Uncle.
Chairman Xu, I corrected myself, watching the pain flicker in his eyes.
I appreciate the gesture.
But I don't lack anything. That single Chairman Xu drew a clear line between us. From now on, we were nothing but business.
No more family ties.
He understood my meaning, let out a defeated sigh, and took the card back.
Yes.
You don't lack anything.
She just wasn't destined for it. The Xu family wasn't destined for it. He was silent for a long time, as if steeling himself for something. When he raised his head again, the sharpness of a business titan had returned to his gaze. Since the personal matters are settled, let's talk business. I want the Xu Group to enter into a deep strategic partnership with your Shenzhou capital. I nodded with professional detachment. In business, I look at value and profit. As a long-standing leader in Bincheng, the Xu Group has that value, I have no reason to refuse. Your team can coordinate the specific details with my vice president. With that, I stood up, ready to take my leave. I'll be heading to Europe soon for a break. The company's affairs for now are all in his hands. Xu Zhengshang watched my retreating figure, his lips parting as if he wanted to say something more. But in the end, it all dissolved into a long, weary sigh. He knew this young man he had once genuinely regarded as a son was never coming back. And his foolish daughter had severed, with her own hands, not just her own happiness, but the very possibility of the Xu family soaring to unimaginable heights for decades to come.
11.
I began my new life. I boarded my private jet and set off on a journey around the world. My social media was no longer a blank slate. I started sharing my life. Skiing in the Alps.
Diving in the Maldives. Watching the Great Migration on the African savanna.
In the photos, world leaders raising glasses with me, business titans discussing the future at my side, elegant women laughing and chatting with me at charity galas. I acquired Zhou Kai's bankrupt and liquidated Qihong Technology, folding its talent and technology into Blue Ocean Intelligence. Then, as a welcome gift, I handed the regional distribution rights for Blue Ocean Intelligence's battery business in China to the Xu Group. The Xu Group's stock price skyrocketed. Xu Zhengshang called to thank me, his voice thick with complicated emotion. As for Xu Meng, after being cast out of the family, she found work as an ordinary clerk, relying on her old credentials. Every day, she squeezed onto the morning and evening rush hour subway, toiling in a cubicle over repetitive, menial tasks, earning a salary of a few thousand yuan. She rented a cramped, dim room in a rundown urban village.
Every night, she ate instant noodles, scrolling through my social media, over and over again.
The glow of her phone screen illuminated her haggard face.
She watched my dazzling life.
She watched the women around me, younger, prettier, more elegant and confident than her, and every single time, it cut her to the bone. She had once possessed all of this. She could have had even more. But now, none of it had anything to do with her. She was living in the hell I had crafted for her with my own hands. That hell had a name, regret. The best revenge was never destruction. It was me, living a life of blinding brilliance, while she had nothing to do with me anymore.
Her world, from now on, would never contain me.
And my world had already long since stopped containing her. 12.
1 year later,
I invested 1 billion yuan to establish a personal charity foundation, dedicated to improving education in impoverished regions. The foundation's inaugural gala was held at Bin City's most prestigious 7-star hotel. I stood as the founder and guest of honor, delivering a speech at the banquet. Seated before me were the brightest luminaries from every corner of the globe, a constellation of stars, and Xu Meng, because of her diligent work at the hotel, had been temporarily assigned to this highest specification gala as a server, carrying trays. She wore the uniform cheap and ill-fitting, balancing a heavy tray, relegated to the most inconspicuous corner of the venue, waiting for orders at a moment's notice. From that corner she stared, dazed from afar, at me beneath the spotlight. The man she had once dismissed as useless, mocked for having no ambition, now stood at the pinnacle of the world, eloquent, commanding, unstoppable. Every word he spoke could sway the future of an industry. Every decision he made could alter the fate of countless lives. And she was just a waitress, humbled to the dust, somewhere in the audience.
My speech ended.
The entire room rose to its feet, erupting in thunderous applause.
I smiled, acknowledging the crowd, raising my glass to the socialites nearby.
My smile was warm, yet carried an unbridgeable distance.
My gaze swept slowly across the room.
Perhaps it passed over the corner where she stood, but it never paused, not even for a second. To her, I was the entirety of her youth, the source of every regret in the second half of her life. To me, she was just a blurry, meaningless figure at the edge of my vision. The gala ended. I drove away. Through the car window, I saw Xu Meng standing hollowly at the staff entrance of the hotel, still clutching that cold, grease-stained tray. In the sky above, the navigation lights of my private jet blinked, slicing through the deep night, soaring toward a farther, brighter horizon.
Our lives, in the end, had become two parallel lines that would never intersect.